In this video, I'm going to show you the most common questions that porters are asked in their interviews and also show you how you can prepare great answers to these questions. So the first thing we need to look at is how to actually pass a porter interview and land the job. So the first thing you want to do is to know what questions to expect, and I will show you the questions that are most likely to come up. And then what you need to have is answers prepared for those. So feel free to take notes throughout the video and actually be planning your answers ready to go. The next thing is you need to dress for the occasion. This is an interview, so you should be dressing formally. If you turn up with inappropriate dress, that could really count against you. The next thing you want to do is you want to show them that you have the skills to do the job. Remember that the point of this interview is to convince them that you would be good at the job. And then my top tip that really does help in getting the job is to see if you can arrange a visit or a call before the interview. So if you can speak to someone, ask some questions, or if you can actually visit, you can learn a lot about the hospital and a lot about the job by doing that. So, the first question that you want to be prepared for is how would you deal with an aggressive patient? Now, people can answer this very, very badly. They often answer it with a kind of hero syndrome that they're going to rush in and save the day magically. And that is not the way to deal with it. So let's look at what they actually want you to say and what is the components of a good answer. So the first thing you want to say is that preemption is best. If you see someone becoming slightly annoyed, you want to de-escalate that and calm it down before it gets worse. If you're aware of a patient that has particular needs or has a history of aggressive outbursts, you need to be aware of that, and you will adapt how you interact with that patient to minimize the risks. So you can say things like that. The next thing you say is that whenever you're confronted with an aggressive patient, one of the most important things that you're trying to do is to not make the situation worse. You don't go in and shout at the patient or basically try and start a fight with them or escalate the situation. That's going to make things much worse. So make it clear in your interview that you're not going to make the situation worse. The next thing you say is that you always remain calm in this situation. You then say that you'll be objective, that you're trying to keep your emotions at bay and make sensible, rational decisions. You then say that if you were to see another member of staff confronting an aggressive patient or dealing with an aggressive patient, that you would offer support where appropriate. Or if you're in the situation where you're dealing with an aggressive patient, that you may seek support as appropriate. The next thing you definitely need to get in is the word de-escalate. That's really your goal, is when a patient is getting very angry and starting to become aggressive, you want to de-escalate the situation as opposed to making it worse. The next thing that you can say is that you would look to remove them from public areas. You don't want this happening in front of other patients that may distress them. And if it is safe to do so, you would like to move the aggressive patient away from other patients. You then say that you would always use your training. So the way that you are taught to deal with this situation and the training that you've been given, you will default to that. And then lastly, you want to make the point that safety is your top priority, so that making sure that all staff and patients and members of the hospital community are kept safe is your number one priority in all of this. And if you get all of those elements in that list, you're going to have a really strong answer and going to impress them. The next question that comes up a lot in porter interviews is, can you work night shifts? And there is a simple answer to this, which is, of course, yes. You may decide that you're going to say no. However, that's probably going to hurt your chances of getting the job. Remember that they are asking this for a reason. If the hospital is to work effectively, it's going to be open 24 hours a day, and they are going to require people to work days and nights. Hospitals can't simply put out an announcement to the public saying, if you're going to have a heart attack, please make sure you do it between 9 and 5 because that's our opening and our office hours. If you have a heart attack any other time, you're on your own. That's not how hospitals work. They need to be staffed all the time. So if you say no to night shifts completely, it's probably going to cost you the job. So really think carefully about this one, and you're going to have to say yes if you want to get the job. The next one that you want to be aware of, and I've given you one example here, which is a relative asks a question about a patient's medication. What would you tell them? And quite often they throw these sort of questions where they're trying to see, are you going to go way beyond where you should? Are you going to follow the correct policies? So they may ask a question where they are listening out for the wrong answer. And the wrong answer would be, well, I would try my best to answer the question. That is wrong. So let's look at what you should actually talk about. The first thing you say is that you would be aware of the confidentiality policy and that medical questions have to be treated extremely sensitively. So, for example, if you knew what medication the patient was on because maybe you'd seen it or you'd heard the nurses discuss it, you're not going to just immediately blurt that out and tell them about those medications because that may breach the confidentiality policy. So you've got to mention that. The next thing you say is that this is a question for clinically trained staff. As a porter, you are not a member of the team of doctors. You're not a doctor. You're not a nurse. You are not clinically trained. You're not a pharmacist. You should not be answering medical questions. You can answer questions about where something is or how long it'll take to get somewhere, or questions that are related to what you're doing, but you shouldn't be answering medical questions. The next thing you would say is that you would consider safeguarding implications. This takes your answer to a little bit higher level because the patient may have some safeguarding or some medical issues that the relative is highlighting. So the relative may ask, have they taken this medication because they've been prescribed this medication, and maybe the patient is unconscious and they haven't got the medical record yet and the relative's really worried that they urgently need something. That could be a really serious safeguarding and medical issue, and that needs to go immediately to someone in the care team. A doctor, for example, or a nurse needs to be immediately made aware of that. So you're going to consider if that question is actually telling you something that is really important that needs to be escalated. And then the last thing you would say is that medical questions should be directed to clinical staff. So you would direct the patient, or you would take the patient to see a member of the medical team to deal with their question as appropriate. So beware of questions where they are looking for the wrong answer, and always go back to what your job is and who the appropriate person is for things, and avoid giving the wrong answer and going way beyond what you should. And that's how you pass this one. The next ones to be aware of is they may ask questions around fitness, and they may ask questions about lifting, because that's going to be a really important part of a porter's job. So let's look at how you answer these. So they might ask a question like, how do you keep fit? Or ask various questions around your fitness levels. So here's how you deal with it. Of course, to be a porter, you don't need to be an Olympic athlete. They're not looking for incredible levels of fitness. They're just looking for a reasonable level of fitness that's going to allow you to actually do your job. So things like you should be able to walk for 8 hours a day quite comfortably, and you should be happy to be pushing and lifting quite heavy equipment. So things that you can say in response to this, you can say that you're medically fit for the demands of the job, because of course you would have to be. You may say that you walk regularly, that you've had jobs in the past that involve a lot of walking, or that you enjoy going on walks as a way of maintaining your fitness. You can say phrases like, I always maintain a reasonable level of fitness, reasonable being important. You're not saying that you're extremely fit. You're just saying that it's reasonable, because that's the standard that they're looking for a porter. If you have sports that you like, if you take part in swimming, tennis, squash, or some other sports, now is a great time to mention these. And if you have gym or sports club memberships, you could also talk about that. But the key that you need to convey is that you're fit and healthy enough to be able to do the job. And that's what they're really looking for in answer to this. Then they might ask about lifting. So you should be able to lift heavy enough weights to be able to do the job. So can you carry typical hospital loads effectively? Could you push a fairly heavy patient in a bed? If the answer to this is yes, make sure you tell them that. That you may have completed some manual handling training in a previous job, where you've actually went on a course or completed some online course that's all about how you can lift and handle and move heavy things safely. If you have a certificate, that's a really great thing to bring to your interview. You say that you use safe lifting techniques, so things like you assess the load before you lift something. You think about it. Is this something for me to lift? Should I lift it with someone else? Is this a two-person load? These sort of questions, that you ensure that you have proper grip before you lift something. You ensure that you've actually got a tight hold of it, that you would lift from a stable position. When you're lifting a heavy load, it may knock you over. You need to make sure that you are stable, that you have thought about the path, that if you are taking it from A to B, that it is clear. Perhaps you've opened the doors before you start lifting it, and you don't lift with your back because that can cause injuries. So that's how you deal with those. Another super important question is, why do you want to be a hospital porter? Now, I can't tell you why you want to be a hospital porter, but what I can do is give you lots and lots of suggestions of things that you can say in your interview. And if you say these, it's going to start producing a great answer. So feel free to take any notes and start planning out an answer and picking from some suggestions. So one thing you could say is that you really like being involved in improving the quality of life of patients in hospital, that you like interacting with patients, that you're really friendly and helpful, and that you can bring a smile to patients, and that you can be a small part of improving their quality of life and improving their quality of care. That you believe that porters provide an essential function, that hospitals would not run smoothly without porters, and that you can be part of delivering the great care that the hospital is aiming for. You may say things like you really enjoy helping people, and that is something you can do as a porter, and that is very rewarding. That you could say that I'm a very caring person, and so that attracts me to healthcare roles, and so that's why you want to work in a hospital. That you enjoy interacting with patients, and that patients perhaps like you, that they like seeing you, and you can interact really positively with patients, and that improves the quality of their care in a small way. That you want an active job, that you don't want to be sitting at a desk, that you like being up and moving around, and that's a big part of why you would enjoy the role of working as a porter, and that you are physically fit enough to keep up with the demands of the job. You may have some family experience of being cared for in a hospital, and you might remember some porters that they dealt with that they had a great relationship with, and that might be a nice story to tell. That you've got previous experience in healthcare that's really positive. That might be as a porter somewhere else. It might be a different experience. So something really positive about jobs you've had in healthcare or caring you could talk about. You could say that you love to meet new people, because as a porter, you'll be meeting lots and lots of patients and working with lots of different staff. That you enjoy working as part of a team. If you had only porters in a hospital, it wouldn't work very well. And if you had no porters in a hospital, it wouldn't work very well. It's very much a team effort. You may have had some voluntary experience. You may have volunteered in a hospital, volunteered in a care setting, and you've had a really positive experience there. You could bring that up. And any relevant qualifications that you have are also definitely worth mentioning at this point, because that might tie into why you want to be a porter. So if you studied health and social care, for example, and you enjoyed that, that would be something that's good to mention. So that's how you answer that question. The next one is often a missed opportunity for many people, and one that you actually want to plan. And they might just say, tell me about yourself. And they don't want to know about what football teams you like and what you watch on television and what your hobbies are in great detail. What you are basically trying to do is convince them that you're the right person for the job and tell them what things they are looking for. So there's three things you want to focus your answer on. Firstly, your past experience, focusing on the experience they care about, less on the experience they don't. The next thing is the qualities and skills. So think about what they want in a porter and say that you have as many of those things as possible. And then in short, just at the end, explain, why did you apply for this job? Why do you want to be a porter, kind of thing, in a short version. So let's look at what you actually say. So the first thing is, with your past experience, start with all your healthcare experience and your experience as being a porter, if that's a job that you've had before, because that is the single best experience, and that is what you want to get across, is I have worked in healthcare, I've been a porter, I have the skills. So talk first about the most relevant experience. If you don't have that, then you go on to the second thing, which is your broader relevant experience. If you have worked in healthcare or have been a porter, but have also had other jobs on top of that, those jobs may enhance your answer. So some broader relevant experience might be customer service, because that helps you with the interaction with patients and dealing with the public. You may have had a job working in, for example, a warehouse where you've got lots of experience manual handling and lifting heavy loads. That would be great experience. or you may have worked in security, which can be a part of a porter's job as well. So any experience that you've got, what you do is you tell them the experience, but then explain in 1 or 2 words or one sentence maybe how that makes you a better porter. So for example, I've worked in a warehouse before, so I'm used to lifting heavy loads, used to doing a lot of walking, and that will be good experience that I can transfer to a hospital rather, porter job. And that's how you do it. You link any experience that you've got to being better as a porter. And then any formal relevant qualifications, for example, in health and social care, that would be a great qualification. Anything that you've got that would show them that you've got a little bit more knowledge than perhaps some other applicants, that would look really positive. Then we move on to the qualities and skills. So some ones that you could mention is if you're highly reliable, that's a good thing to say. If you're very professional, which I hope you are, you can say that I am very professional, that you are patient-centric, that you really genuinely care about delivering great care, that you're friendly, that you're caring, that you've got good physical fitness, that you're a team player. Pick from that list and say these things when you're telling them about yourself. Then why did you apply? So you give them the short version of why you want to be a porter. So you could also talk about the positives of this employer. So is this a really good employer? Is this a great place to work? Is there good training opportunities that you think you're going to have? You're going to learn a lot from this job, or are you looking for a very stable job and you think that this is going to be a stable long-term career for you? These are things that you can say. You can say that you love to help people and that this is a great role for you because it matches with your interests, that you want to have a positive impact on patient care and you can do that as a porter, and that you believe that being a porter is an excellent match for your skills and experience. That is something else you can say. So that's how you deal with the tell me about yourself. You start with your past experiences, list the qualities they're looking for, and then in a short way, explain why this is the right job for you. And that's how you nail this question. Before we finish, here are some great questions that you may want to ask at the end of your interview, because they probably will ask, do you have any questions for us? And if you say no, that's very bad. You've got to have some good questions. So one question you might ask is, can you tell me more about the induction program for new porters, and show a lot of interest in what you're going to learn in that. You might ask, can you tell me more about the team and department I could be working with, and find out who you're working with, who your managers are going to be, how the porter function is organized in your hospital. You may also say, is there anything you would suggest that I do to prepare for starting this role if I'm successful? And if they make some suggestions about things that you could do, that would be really great, that you could make the commitment that, yes, I will do that to make sure I'm well prepared. You could also ask, what are your main improvement priorities for your service, and how would I be able to support these in the role? So they could say what they are looking to develop as a hospital, and you can start talking about how you can help in a small way in your function to bring about the improvements so that the management are trying to do. So you're showing an alignment with their goals. And then you could also ask, what is your favorite part about working at this hospital? And that is something that you can share in their enthusiasm with, and also have that little bit of connection with them. Never ask about holidays, time off, delaying start dates, or negotiating pay. Those all go down very badly. This is not the time to ask those questions. So I hope this was helpful to you. If it was, please like and subscribe. I wish you the best of luck in your hospital porter interview, and thank you very much for watching.